Welcome to the Mitten Mysteries podcast, hosted by Haileigh Vee.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mitten Mysteries podcast. I'm your host, Haileigh Vee. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you are new here, we like to talk about all things creepy, strange, and unusual. Anything weird that happens here in the Mitten State, this is what we talk about here on this podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you guys go ahead and follow us over on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We are literally everywhere. So if you guys want to follow us over there for extra content, then go ahead and follow us over there on our other social pages. They are all under the Mitten Mysteries. And one last thing before we get into today's topics is if you guys happen to have any legends or any cool stories that you would like our listeners to listen to, I would love it if you guys would send them to themittenmysteries@gmail.com. So that way I can read them out loud to our listeners and share about stories and topics or legends that maybe a lot of people here from Michigan didn't know about. All right, well, that's enough with the intro. Let's go ahead and get into today's show. Hey y'all, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming back and listening to me ramble about all sorts of creepy, strange, and unusual things here in Michigan. I hope you guys had a great week, and I hope you will continue to have a great week next week. So in last week's episode, we talked all about the possibilities and the theories and the legends of there being sharks inside of the Great Lakes. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, go ahead and make sure you listen to it. It is a very interesting topic to me. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you guys will know that I have a complete giant fear of the ocean, sharks, anything deep, dark water. It doesn't even have to be the ocean. I'm just genuinely terrified. If I can't see to the bottom, probably not swimming in it. So yeah, that was last week's episode. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, go ahead and listen to it after this episode. But in today's episode, I've been really wanting to talk about this topic for a very long time, and there's going to probably be multiple parts to this topic because there's just so many of them in Michigan. And this topic is all about the haunted hotels of Michigan. Now, I have done a couple podcasts about some of these hotels, the first one being the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, also some of the other hotels that are on Mackinac Island, and I also did do one about the Terrace Inn in Petoskey, Michigan. That hotel was so cool. I cannot wait to go back to it. I'm so excited because me and my husband are going to be able to stay at the Grand Hotel this fall for our anniversary. We're going to be going for 2 nights, and I cannot wait to see everything, go into the rooms and sleep there and just have the whole experience of the Grand Hotel. So it's going to be very interesting to see and kind of give my thoughts to you guys. Of course, I'm going to tell you all about it when I come back, but I'm very excited about that for this fall. Now, you're probably wondering, Haileigh, what hotel are you going to talk about first? Well, friends, today we're going to be talking all about the famous, very well-loved Haileigh Hotel. Let's take a trip back in time to 1863 in Haileigh, Michigan. The first railroad tracks to reach Haileigh were those of the Detroit and Milwaukee line, later joined by the Flint and Haileigh Railroad line, founded by Henry Crapo. A modest 2-story wood building called the Washington House occupied the corner where the Haileigh Hotel presently stands. More than 25 trains pass through Haileigh each day, bringing passengers, railroaders, freight, and transits into the village and the saloons that line Martha and Broad Streets. Many free-for-all brawls typically left so many injured that Martha Street was dubbed Battle Alley by the locals, a name that remains today. In 1891, the Hearst Hotel was built by John Hearst to cater the flow of railroad passengers passing through Haileigh. Having the largest and finest dining room in the area, the hotel rapidly became the social center of the surrounding community. The hotel itself was one of the best in the area. August 29th of 1908, the visit of Carrie Nation to the Haileigh Hotel caused tremendous notoriety when Miss Nation and her pro-temperance supporters invaded the town, clubbing patrons of the Haileigh Hotel with their umbrellas. The painting of the flimsy-clad lady above the bar unleashed further wrath, and Carrie began smashing whiskey bottles and her trademark axe. Miss Nation was appalled at the attitude of the Haileigh Hotel proprietor when he refused to condemn the drinking habits of the locals that patronized the Haileigh Hotel's very large bar. Her misguided and destructive actions prompted the Haileigh Hotel owner to have her arrested and lodged in the local jail. Governor Warner used Carrie Nation's incarceration as a political reason to visit Haileigh and address the townspeople. Today, the Haileigh Hotel celebrates Carrie Nation's visit each year with a celebration of her visit with special menus, a reenactment of her visit, and of course, specially reduced prices on alcoholic beverages. In 1912, businessman Joseph P. Allen bought the building, and in 1913, the hotel suffered a disastrous fire, completely destroying the second and third floors. Allen rebuilt the structure, but in somewhat more modest style, with a shorter tower, and much more simple second floor and plainer porches. In 1913, the hotel reopened as the Allendorf. Henry Norton purchased the building, redecorated it, and renamed it to the Hotel Norton. However, as the passenger train traffic dwindled and finally stopped, the hotel became less desirable and the building eventually became just a local restaurant. In 1978, the hotel suffered another disastrous fire, down to the day of the last fire in 1913, just 65 years later. Local resident Dr. Leslie Scher purchased the building and began restoring it, rebuilding the roof and the tower to its original 1891 design. The building was reopened in 1979 as a restaurant. Every state governor since that time has dined at the Haileigh Hotel, as well as President George H.W. Bush during his 1992 campaign. Unfortunately, on June 21, 2022, the building sustained heavy damage in another fire that destroyed multiple other buildings nearby in Haileigh's downtown. And as we speak, the hotel is being restored so it will be able to open by this summer, 2023. The Haileigh Hotel is among an elite group of properties that has had continual food service in 3 centuries. When you go to the Haileigh Hotel, you will see when you walk in every piece of wood, railing, molding, tile, and glass, which was salvaged from the 1978 fire, has been reincorporated into the decor. The decor is beautiful. It's just my taste. I love all that old Victorian style furniture, decor. That's right up my alley. I love all that, so I think it's beautiful on the inside. The original stair railing, which once led the upper stories, has been converted to serve as the railing on the main floor bar. The back bar was reconstructed from the materials which was formerly in Detroit's original Cunningham's drugstore. Every doorway and arch has been carefully refitted into new entrances, allowing access to the present 3 main floor dining rooms and 2 private banquet rooms. On February 8, 1980, the Haileigh Hotel was entered into the National Register of Historic Places of the United States. So you gotta wonder, with all this historic detail and how many fires that have taken place at this hotel, one would almost think, yeah, this place has gotta be haunted, right? Well, yes, this is one of the most haunted hotels in Michigan. But what in fact makes this hotel so haunted, and who are the ghosts that haunt this hotel? Well, friends, lucky for you, the hotel owners and staff know exactly who haunt the hotel. One of the main ghosts that you will happen to come across is Mr. Hearst himself. Mr. Hearst was the first former hotelier, and Mr. Hearst passed away in the early 1920s, but he knows that he is still lord of the house. His ghost is one of the most frequent, although an actual materialization is rare. His spirit seems unable to pass on to the afterlife due to the Great Fire at the Haileigh Hotel in 1913, which ended his reign. He does not like a lot of noise, nor is he happy with any of the renovations going on at the Haileigh Hotel. If you see a man wearing a frock coat and a top hat, you most likely have met Mr. Hearst. The cigar smoke is the most common manifestation of Mr. Hearst. It can be soft and wafting, barely noticeable, or very strong and very overpowering. Disembodied laughter seems to be the most common version of a manifestation of the Hearst voice, a faint baritone laughter that resounds through the house. He has also been known to speak on occasion, although it isn't often directly towards listeners. The next ghost that you will witness here at the Haileigh Hotel is a woman by the name of Nora Kane. She's described as a petite, beautiful lady. Nora seems to be the hostess of the house. From historical accounts, Mrs. Kane had a love of music and seems to still enjoy a good play of melody now and again. Her spirit is frequently encountered, and she has materialized mostly in photographs, especially at weddings held at the hotel. Her portrait is on display at the restaurant's main lobby. Nora's most common haunting is one that appeals to the sense of smell. This may be in fact one of the most common hauntings in the entire house. Nora's perfume is described as a sweet, flowery scent that can be picked up in any room of the house, although the scent is most common in the turret area in the main bar room. Nora's ghost is seen most often in the bar and the back hallway, which is one of the main entrances to the Haileigh Hotel. She is often described as very graceful, and not often complete, but cutting off at about the knees. She is always wearing one of her most beautiful dresses. In life, Mrs. Kane loved music, and she carried that love into the afterlife. She has been heard playing the piano, and if you ever hear music drifting through the house, more than likely it's Nora's treating you to a good song. Speaking of songs, Nora was also a very good singer, and her soft melodies can sometimes be distantly heard throughout the different dining rooms late at night. She has also been known to ask people standing near the piano to play a tune for her. Her voice can also be heard throughout the house. Another ghost that seems to haunt the Haileigh Hotel are the ghosts in the kitchen. In the restaurant, at the end of the main hall, you can find the hotel's kitchen. Behind the original swinging doors, you will see many of the same utensils, pots, pans, dishes, and fine china, tableware, and glassware from the turn of the century. It is here that you can find one of the Haileigh Hotel's most active ghosts. This spirit may be one or two, or maybe both, girls died young. Some have speculated that this could be the spirit of a little girl who died here after being severely injured in the livery stable, which was adjacent to the hotel, where the parking lot exists now. Or perhaps it is the ghost of the daughter of Nora Kane. Nora's picture in the foyer has her in a black morning dress. Whoever she is, she seems rather happy and playful and has been described as being between 9 and 13 years old, with red hair. We were unable to uncover her name, but her habits are well known. This playful little ghost seems to enjoy passing her eternity by toying with many kitchen items placed within the room. In many accounts, the items she plays with the most are often the meat cleaver, although the teapots and hanging utensils were also targets. This is also the ghost or ghosts who are frequently heard running up and down the stairways. This young ghost is the only one that appeared during the seance in the early 1990s. A soft, giggling, disembodied voice is the most common haunting of this type. This is often accompanied by moving objects from the kitchen. A few other of the ghosts that seem to haunt the Haileigh Hotel are including Mr. Hurst's dog named Leona. She's described as looking similar to a rat terrier, but this dog can be heard running up and down the halls, brushing up against people's legs, and phantom barking is often observed, especially by the early morning chefs. In February 1996, Miss Cutlenios arrived at the Haileigh Hotel early. Getting ready for Thursday afternoon tea, as was her standard, she began to walk to the dining rooms for a quick morning inspection. When she rounded the corner into the dining room, she was greeted by the image of a Native American man, who looked to be real as anything else in the room except that he had no feet. He hovered in view for a few moments before fading from view. No other Native American has been identified or reported before, and none have since. So those are just a few of the ghosts and weird things that seem to happen here at the Haileigh Hotel. My father has gone to the Haileigh Hotel and he has experienced the Haileigh Hotel for himself. I cannot wait to go there when it reopens again this summer, but my dad has an experience with the Haileigh Hotel, and I'm going to go ahead and play his interview for you so you guys can hear what he has to say and his experience, and I think you guys will really enjoy this story. So this story is coming from my dad when he went in the early 2000s. I think it was like 2010 or 11. He went to go visit the Haileigh Hotel to take some pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys right now so you can hear his story from the Haileigh Hotel.
Hello, everybody. I've shot a lot of bands throughout the years. Anybody that knows me knows who I am from the Detroit scene, local and national acts. My daughter asked me if I would tell my story about the night I went to capture photos, the historic Haileigh Hotel. Haileigh's going to share some of the photos to go along with this podcast.
Yeah, so the photos will be on my Mitten Mysteries Instagram. You guys will be able to see what we're talking about when we talk about it.
This happened back at July 12th of 2011. I was at home and I kept seeing things. I was watching Ghost Adventures on cable, and I was watching all the Most Haunted and all the weird stuff that you watch on the weekends, you know, when you're home from work and you just get into all that spooky stuff. But it was just something weird, and I just thought in my mind, because I had a friend of mine that had lived up in Haileigh, and I had heard a bunch of people telling me, say, hey, if you want to capture ghosts, man, go to a Haileigh Hotel, man. That place supposed to be really haunted. So I looked it up online and started seeing stuff that other people had captured. So I figured, well, I'll get a hold of my friend. I'll go up there and see what happens. So the night in question, July 12th, 2011, I took a little ride up there, and it was in the evening, and I got up there, and I went to a friend of mine's, and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to go over to the Haileigh Hotel. You want to go with me? Or you can hang out, and I'll let you know what happened. But I remember I had kind of went by myself, so I remember in the front of the building, I started taking pictures of the building. It's beautiful inside. And then outside, I'm sorry. And I noticed there was a little store. It said something about herbs, spells, and potions and all that, and had a finger pointing downstairs, like a stairwell that goes down to the basement of the Haileigh Hotel on the front part of the building. And then when I got down to the end of the stairwell, I noticed a picture of like a witch on a stained glass thing, and like a little store that sold incense and crystal balls and spell books or whatever they had inside there. So I went inside, and I noticed there was an older lady working in there, and I had said, hi, my name is Steve, and I'm a local photographer, and I was wondering if I could shoot some pictures of inside your facility here. I heard so much about it. Can I ask you a question? Is this place haunted? And the lady said, very much so. And I said, really? And I said, can you tell me something about this place? And she said, well, I'm the owner of the store, and nobody has keys to my store here. And there's times where I've come in the next day and noticed things moved around, like the books that are on the wall over there. And I'm figuring they're spell books or whatever. She said they'd be lined up in alphabetical order on the floor. And then some of the little figurines that you see around here, they'll be up by the counter right by the door in places that I didn't put them in. I know I'm the only one that had a key to my store, so there's no way they could have moved by themselves unless someone was in here. One night I was working late, and one of the books flew up, and it kind of, I think she said it hit her in the back. And I was like, wow, that's wild, you know. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what I'm going to do when this store closes? I'm going to come back and try to sneak some photos through the window. Maybe I can capture some weird stuff happening once the store closes. So then I asked the lady, I says, do you think the owner would mind me like walking around the hotel inside, maybe take some photos? She said, well, come with me. I'll introduce you. So I said, okay, no problem. So I followed her through the back staircase. And then she was telling me that in the basement of the Haileigh Hotel, they have a comedy club. And then there's a stairwell that takes you up through the backside. It takes you up into the hotel, into like the main lobby part. So I followed her, and as we got to the top of the stairs, there was a lady in a long white dress, had like a ruffled collar, her hair was pulled up, and sort of like a bun, and she was dressed like the 1800s. And I remember looking at this older lady, like 80, 90 years old, and she goes, yeah, that's the lady you want to talk to right there. And I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said, do you mind if I take some photos of your hotel? She turned around and she said, yes, sir. No, I don't mind as long as you don't bother my guests. I said, I'm not going to bother your guests. So then when I looked to turn around to thank the lady that took me up the stairs, she was gone. I thought that was kind of weird. So then this lady went through the door of the kitchen and walked away. So I went, started taking pictures. There was a dining room next to me. I took some photos in there. And then I started to walk up the staircase and go up to different levels of the Haileigh Hotel. And there was like old pictures, and there was old like statues and furniture and then mirrors and stuff. And I captured a lot of stuff inside there. And I just come down the stairs and I said, you know, I think I got enough. And then, so I got a hold of my friend and I said, hey, listen, I got some stuff, but I'm really tired. I'm going to go home and I'm going to try to process all this stuff, see if I captured anything. So then when I got home, I started to load everything. And then I started seeing weird stuff, like in the shelled picture in the actual witch's store. I call it witch's store. It's a Wicca store or whatever you want to call it. There was an image of like an old druid-looking guy with like a hoodie on, with like a sunken-in face with dark eyes. It looked like something from like way back in time, and it was really creepy. And I took different angles and different mirrors that were in their pictures, and this image kept showing up in different ways. And I thought, wow, I actually captured that. And then I took a picture of a crystal ball that was in the store, and the lady had told me I was taking a picture of this one, and she says, don't take a picture of that one. Take a picture of this other one over here on the side. So I took a picture of it. It had like this driftwood-looking frame, and it held it. So sort of an old wooden frame sort of thing, what I remember. And I didn't think nothing of it. And then when I started to look at the pictures after I had uploaded them in my computer, I noticed there was like a demonic-looking image set in like a throne-looking chair. And it had like a green eye and a red eye, and it had like horns on its shoulders. It was like charcoal black, and it was skinny, and it looked really weird. Well, that's sort of like what this guy looked like. And so I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, that's weird. I captured that in a crystal ball. So then I had went there later that night. I forgot later on when the store closed. I meant to put that in there too. I had taken pictures through the glass. Before I went home, I meant to put that in there. I'm sorry. But anyway, I captured on film this old man standing behind the glass, and he looked like an old sailor, sort of like he had a white hair and a white beard and a white mustache, and I could see him smoking something. But at the time I took the picture, I didn't see anything. But when I developed it, I remember when I was taking this picture, I smelled the smell behind me of like cigars or cigarettes. And I thought, this is weird. This restaurant's closed. There's nobody around me, but I smelled this real strong. And come to find out, from what I've read on the internet, the original proprietor smoked either it was a pipe or cigars, and people smelled that have bumped into this guy like I did after he had died. And the smell travels throughout the hotel or whatever. And so I remember looking at this picture, seeing this guy in this picture, thinking, wow, I didn't see that when I took the picture. But also, some of the other pictures, I had actually captured these spell books or floating in the air. And if Haileigh wants to share those with you, you could see those in the photos here of these books floating, levitating in the store, as well as like little creatures or whatever it was with their eyes staring back at me during the time I was taking these photos. And like I said, I didn't see any of this stuff as I was taking pictures. But something else that popped in was when I was up on the upper levels, when I was taking pictures of the big mirrors that are upstairs on like the second or third floor, there was an image of a big looking beast thing standing behind me, but it had like a long fat arm and it had like a spike, either for a fingernail or a spike steel thing. And it was standing behind me like it wanted to stab me with it. And it showed up in the actual photos as well. Some of the weird stuff. But the thing I remember was, but all this stuff, from taking the photos and capturing stuff on film, real stuff, levitational books or images of things demonic inside of crystal balls, stuff you see in movies, things in mirrors that people talk about. They capture ghosts in mirrors or weird stuff happens. I captured all that. Just this one night of capturing a haunted Haileigh Hotel.
So what did you capture when you took pictures of the dining room?
There was when I first took the pictures, when I first walked in the door, that's one of the first photos I took. I didn't see anything. I was just trying to snapping some shots because it looked really nice. And but when I got home to load them in the computer, I noticed there was a little girl. I think she was wearing a white dress, but she was hiding underneath a table. And I seen her like peeking underneath the table at me. So I actually took the photo and put an arrow down facing, saying little girl underneath the table. So if you would go back on the computer and look at this album, you'll see that little girl under the table. And from what I've read on the internet, the owners had lost their daughter, I guess in a stable or a horse accident or something like that. So the second day, I called my friend. I say, listen, I'm going to come back up there again because I captured some really cool stuff. I'm going to see if I can get some other stuff. So when I got up there, it was in the evening, and as I'm walking through the door, the staff, the bartender, and one of the waitresses stopped me at the door and said, excuse me, sir, where are you going with the camera? And I said, well, I'm going to continue shooting pictures. I came yesterday. The owner gave me permission to shoot photos. And they go, when was that? And I go, yesterday. I was here yesterday shooting pictures. And I said, I didn't finish, so I wanted to come back today. And they go, sir, could you do us a favor and sit at the bar, which is just to the left of the entry when you first walk in the Haileigh Hotel. There's a bar right there. And I sat at the corner. And they went and called the owner. They said, because the owner wasn't here yesterday. And so I go, really? So then I'm sitting at the bar, and a few minutes later, the waitress and the waiter brought me the cordless phone, because they had cordless phones back then. And I said, hello, and I hear this woman's voice sound a lot younger. And she said, hello, is this Steve? I said, yeah, this is Steve, the photographer. She goes, Steve, can I ask you a question? Who gave you permission to shoot pictures in my hotel? I said, well, you did yesterday. I said, I shot pictures yesterday. She goes, I wasn't there yesterday. She goes, what did she look like? I go, well, she was an older woman, about 80 years old, maybe 90, had white hair. She had like a long dress with like a ruffled collar, and she's dressed like the 1800s. She goes, do me a favor, get up from the bar, if that's where you're at, go inside the lobby part and look up at that picture just on the wall right as you come out of the bar. So I did. I went there and I looked up. I go, yep, that's her. That's who I talked to. She goes, that lady's been dead for over 100 years.
And that woman was Nora Kane.
What I found out was I asked the lady I was talking to, I said, hello, what is your name? She said, my name is Chrissy. She goes, I really like your story, but I'd like you to come back when I'm there and we could talk about it. And she said, I can take you to places that the public isn't allowed to go, and I can show you some other places other people have done ghost hunts or whatever. And, we can go from there. I said, well, that would be really cool. I'd like to do that sometime. But that was like 2011, so it's been a few years. So then here recently, I went online to look up who's the owner of the Haileigh Hotel. As soon as I did, it said Chrissy. So I knew I had talked to the owner. So I know you've been talking about wanting to go there and do something for your podcast.
Right. So once they open back up, because the hotel burnt down again, so they're restoring everything, and it's supposed to open back up this summer. So hopefully we can get into contact with somebody. If they happen to listen to this podcast, Chrissy, if you're listening, or if anybody that knows the Haileigh Hotel's owners, we'd love to get in contact with you to be able to come and check out the hotel and maybe, talk to you and kind of interview you just to see, because I'm very interested about the hotel and I know that.
Right. It's a beautiful place. It's sad to hear. It's the third time it's caught on fire. Almost every time it's caught on fire, it's almost a year to date, the month, the day, and everything. Very unusual. I know there's a lot of things going on there. There's a lot of energy there. One of the photos I captured in the actual spell store downstairs was a lot of energy. You can see that photo in the album. It just popped into one of the photos. It looked like lightning bolts shooting all over the inside of that store. It's our third time recording this podcast.
Third time, yeah.
Third time.
It's not been working.
20-minute podcast, 3 times already we've tried this. And not all the times were today.
No, these were like months and months ago. Even last year we tried to do it and it still has not worked. So
every single time we've tried.
Hopefully it works this time so you guys are able to hear the story, because I've been wanting to get it out for over a year
now. Talk
now.
About creepy, man. That's creepy right there in itself. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get you back on the podcast so you can talk about all your other paranormal experiences you've had and talk about that at another time, because I know you could go on and on about those. There's a lot of things have happened to you, and I'm sure you'd love to explain it to listeners, just in case anybody else has had similar things happen to them. So yeah, it's good having you on, Dad. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
It was my pleasure. I had a lot of fun.
All right, guys. Well, we will talk to you in our next podcast.
Take 3.
There you have it, guys. That was Papa Steve's experience at the haunted historic Haileigh Hotel, and that's just a sliver of the things that has happened to him in his life with the paranormal or spooky, creepy things. He can go on and on. He is very much so a sensitive person to the paranormal, and he has plenty of stories to go. So I should get him back on the podcast to talk about all of this, to talk about all the things that has happened to him, because you guys would not believe half the stuff that has happened to him. Or maybe you will, because a lot of the listeners here, you guys are into some strange and unusual things too. If you were interested in seeing any of the photos that my dad had taken from the Haileigh Hotel, you can go ahead and go over to the Mitten Mysteries on Instagram, and you can check out the post that we're going to be making after this is published. You can see all the creepy, spooky photos that my dad took at the time that he was there. You could follow us at the Mitten Mysteries on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, YouTube. You could do it all. We're on all the platforms except for Twitter. We don't really use Twitter. For more content, follow me over at Haileigh Vee on TikTok and Instagram. I post all different sorts of content over on there, so if you guys want to check me out over there too, you can always do that. If you enjoyed today's episode about the historic haunted Haileigh Hotel, then make sure you stick around, because we're doing a whole series on the haunted hotels of Michigan. But for now, we will see you guys in the next episode. Stay spooky, y'all.